What do you think of Whoopi Goldberg saying it's worse to be a black person in America today than a woman in Iran? You know, I see we were talking about the trans issue before in the New York Times.
Bill Maher was never a poster child for conservative outrage. If anything, he's been the late-night voice who delights in roasting the right while reminding his own side not to drift into self-parody. So when the self-described sensible liberal stared into the camera on Real Time and declared, "We've got to do something about The View," the studio audience answered with nervous, half-stifled laughter. Even they could feel it. When Maher is done giving you the benefit of the doubt, you've officially run out of political airbags. That single line didn't come out of nowhere. It was triggered by a comment so incendiary that ABC affiliates clipped it out of later rebroadcasts.
Extraordinary clips ever from The View where Whoopi basically claimed that it is as bad for women in Iran, it is as bad for gays and women in America and blacks in America as it is for women in Iran, which is completely absurd. Apparently Alyssa Farah also is Iranian, so she's lecturing her about it.
Whoopi Goldberg compared the lived experience of black Americans in the United States to the condition of women under Iran's theocratic regime, an equivalence that Iranian dissidents and U.S. civil rights veterans slammed as wildly detached from reality. Maher's broadside wasn't just a hot take about one bad analogy. It was a flashing red warning that The View, Disney's daytime juggernaut, may have drifted so far into partisan theatrics that it now threatens the very party it claims to champion. And as you'll see, Disney's carefully polished ratings defense collapses the moment you peek behind the curtain. But first, let's rewind to the moment that lit the fuse.
Where Whoopi Goldberg argued that blacks in America have it as bad as the people of Iran. Now, I was astonished by this position, but I'm interested in your response. Is this a widely held view in the black community as far as you know?
Yeah, I was equally astonished. It is very ignorant to state.
Whoopi's analogy landed like a live grenade. On one side of the table, Alyssa Farah Griffin invoked Iran's record of imprisoning women for a missing headscarf. On the other, Goldberg replied that black Americans know the same oppression. Studio gasps, social media meltdowns, and a wave of front-page condemnation followed within hours. Even outlets usually sympathetic to The View refused to air the full exchange. Not because they disagreed politically, but because equating Tehran's morality police with the U.S. civil rights struggle cheapened both histories and invited a blowtorch of backlash.
Bill Maher skewered Whoopi Goldberg over recently saying it's worse to be a black person living in America today than it is to be a woman living in Iran. Here he was on Friday night on his show, Real Time with Bill Maher. Take a look.
We were talking about the trans issue before, and the New York Times really has come over on that.
By sundown, internal ABC executives were counting how many station managers had spliced the segment out of their local reruns. Cue Bill Maher. On HBO the next night, he recapped the outrage and pivoted to the bigger picture. Step 1, great. Democrats are rediscovering sanity. Step 2, we've got to do something about The View. The audience groaned, half in amusement, half in dread. Because everyone knew exactly what he meant. If your loudest daytime megaphone is misfiring this badly, it's not the opposition that suffers. It's you.
Trump is almost the same age as him. But Trump doesn't present that way. You know, you look at somebody right away, you can kind of just sum them up. I mean, we are not young, but we don't present as old. Biden does. I saw him yesterday making that speech. I mean, I'm sorry, he's cadaver-like.
But his brain is good. He's still great.
Behind the scenes, Disney CEO Bob Iger and ABC News, President Alman Karamehmetovich, had already tried to nudge the panel toward calmer waters. According to multiple reports, the pair met with the hosts after the 2024 election and politely suggested dialing back the daily barrage, especially the anti-Trump riffs that now sounded less like debate and more like déjà vu. The response? A collective, primetime-worthy nope. Iger left the meeting empty-handed, and insiders say even he was surprised by the defiance. Why so bold? Because The View has long believed its ratings armor made it bulletproof.
And by the way, out there, that hat that you keep wearing, that red hat that says "Make America Great Again," that tells people that you go along with this. So you might as well just put a swastika on the hat.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Because we see it anyway.
I'm not going to defend Donald Trump ever, but I would never say that we should put the swastika on the cap.
If you're pulling a couple million viewers every weekday, why listen to anyone, even the guy who signs the checks? Maher's plea to the Democratic Party, not Disney, wasn't a slip. It was an acknowledgement that corporate leadership had already tried and failed. If the show is a runaway train, the only entity left with leverage is the political establishment, whose talking points often echo across that Hot Topics table. Whenever critics sharpen their knives, ABC News rolls out the same press release.
Really has come over on that to the sort of the sensible, liberal, not crazy woke position. I think this is a great first step toward getting the Democrats back to sanity. And a second good step would be, we got to do something about The View.
The View is #1 in households and total viewers among daytime talk news shows. The latest version trumpeted 2.398 million viewers and the strongest performance in women 18 through 49 since March. Sounds unstoppable until you decode the fine print. Daytime refers to a narrow 3-hour window, roughly 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. The comparison pool is only other network talk shows that also label themselves news. Largest audience since April is bragging about a gain of a few 100,000 since 8 weeks ago. It's the ratings equivalent of winning a foot race, where your only competition is 2 people you handpicked, and then boasting that you shaved half a second off last month's time. Impressive inside the bubble, irrelevant everywhere else. Now zoom out.
And all with the same head cover. You can't even tell which one is which.
On the same Monday, Disney hyped those 2.398 million viewers. Fox News' The Five racked up 4.08 million. Gutfeld, which airs near midnight on the East Coast, still cleared 3.4 million. Primetime staples like Jesse Waters, Primetime and Hannity hovered around 4 and 3 million, respectively. Remember, Fox is a cable channel. Viewers have to pay for it, or at least navigate a streaming app. The View, by contrast, is piped free over the air into virtually every American household. Yet it draws roughly half the audience of a 5 p.m. cable panel show and loses outright to late-night satire on the same platform. In other words, if you remove the guardrails and stacked The View against every program on its own network grid, let alone across streaming and cable, the unstoppable label starts to look aspirational. So why keep it? Conventional wisdom says The View rakes in a prize demographic: women aged 25 to 54 who purportedly decide elections. But drill deeper, and you discover a narrower slice: women who already lean hard left. Research segments for years have shown minimal crossover appeal. Critics tune in for the spectacle. Devotees tune in for affirmation. Few, if any, leave with a changed mind. That's what Maher was warning about. A show that preaches to the choir while alienating swing voters is no longer a secret weapon. It's a self-inflicted wound. And because the panel now operates as a feedback loop, constructive criticism from the outside doesn't penetrate.
And Bill Maher makes an interesting point here. What are you going to do with these people, the left? They are destroying the thing that you care about, Bill, right? Like the old school liberal idea, which I believe in. I just don't think it has anything to do with the Democrats.
Bill Maher is hardly MAGA's secret emissary. When he waves the red flag, it means the usual friendly critics have reached their limit. Whoopi Goldberg's Iran comparison was the spark, but the powder keg was years of unchecked rhetoric circular praise, and PR smoke bombs. Here's the uncomfortable question Maher left hanging. If Disney can't or won't steer the ship, and if the Democratic Party keeps pretending the turbulence is just weather, how long before viewers, advertisers, or regulators decide the voyage isn't worth the ticket? Because in the end, daylight and ratings spin can't coexist forever. Numbers don't lie, echo chambers don't grow, and even the most forgiving allies eventually say, enough.